Hi everyone and welcome to my review of Charlie Chaplin's The Gold Rush in 1925. So yes, another Chaplin review of course, yes, and here we are. Unfortunately with the DVD, I did explain something, in my last Chaplin review, The Circus. I had to rebuy this film again because I actually sold my double, which was the only one containing the 25 version. Now this is what this review is going to be based on, the original version, which has of course been restored. It's on this DVD and it is on, the Blu-ray, which, kind of, yes, the ones that include, of course, both versions. I'm not going to watch the 42 version. That was the whole point I bought this. But yes, here we are, and it actually, it's just such a great DVD set. It actually says the wrong title. It actually says Gold Rush, if you can see it, because it's so poorly designed. It's yellow on white. So yes, that aside, of course, it's The Gold Rush, the film. This is another Chaplin film that is hugely popular, and many say, some say it's his best, many say it's one of his very best. I wouldn't even put it in his top three, but for me, no doubt, I agree with the fact, this is AFI. I think it was in on both occasions, them two lists in the top 100, and yes, Sight and Sound and all this kind of stuff. Really value this highly. It's actually got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not all the Chaplins surprisingly have that. Not even City Lights has that, which is baffling. But yes, this one does. And yeah, it's kind of one that he said on many occasions. I think he also said City Lights and stuff, Chaplin himself. He said this is one he wants to be remembered for the most. And it does have so many, elements of, just kind of being, kind of an ultimate Chaplin film in many regards. His comedy, the slapstick is really, really heavy here, of course. It's his most action film, you could say, action heavy, along with The Circus. It has the romance, the drama, and just the physicality. Once again, seeing this just really, really struck me. So I can understand that. For me, as I say, it's not in his top three, but no doubt an absolute masterpiece of cinema. This one is very, very high on my list, and of course, as I say, it's not in my top three. That just says it all, really. But this is mind blowing. This film, even better than I remembered when I saw it back in 2017. This one is truly a work of cinema that is just flawless for me. Not everyone says that, but I think definitely so. Even the kind of the reworking of the score and stuff, because the original, for the 25 version is not, not still available, but the actual reworking of this, which is inspired by most of the stuff that was in the original. I even love that. Sometimes, basically, a lot of the silent films that I've seen, where there is a new score put in there, not by the original artist and stuff, it can't be great sometimes. I think some of the Ozus, actually the silent ones, I've been less than impressed with the actual stuff they've put in there. Not that it's affected the film too much and stuff, but really, this one is definitely great. I loved what they've done with this. Of course, it is roughly similar to, in many regards, to the original that Chaplin done. But yes, this film, it is, of course, it's a take on, definitely a fantastical take as well, comedic take on the late 1800s actual gold rush that took place, of course, with many kind of prospectors in search of gold, and of course the tragedy of it all, and the kind of all that kind of stuff, how sad it was and stuff, is actually, it's so well put into this film, while also being, of course, a comedy. And this is one of the funniest films I've ever seen. Once again, no less expected, by Chaplin. All of his feature films are hilarious, apart from, the ones I've seen, apart from Woman in Paris, and maybe, Limelight, because it's not really as much of a comedy, but, when the comedy is in there, it is, of course, great comedy. But yes, most of his ones until, Limelight, maybe One Monsieur Verdot, are all really hilarious. Of the features, apart from Woman in Paris, the only disappointing one, really. This one, it's just flawless as a comedy, as a drama, as a kind of a satire, politically and stuff as well. It works in every sense, and as an action film, this film is remarkable. In that sense, it's one of the best. The sets in this film, wow. The cabin. Of course, the main story. It starts off with him finding himself a prospector and this fugitive. The prospector, of course, Big Jim McKay. A great character. I love this character in the film, and he's such a great one. The friendship that they form over the film. It's just it's something that's so enjoyable, so warm and sincere, and one that doesn't start off, you know, like this, but it's kind of earned. And then of course, and there is a spoiler warning for this, you know, I put in the description. Of course, I do want to kind of briefly mention some parts, you know, the ending and stuff. But yes, go back and watch it. Of course, if you've not seen the film, you've been warned. But yes, basically, you know, the fugitive, of course, it kind of with them at first. So the three of them are in the cabin up this mountain in search of gold, of course. While the blizzard, you know, is present, of course, and this just adds so much greatness here. You know, the kind of how entertaining this whole 30 minutes is. Wow. Of course, the two doors opposite ends, you know, they keep blowing open and stuff. And of course, you know, Chaplin and all the characters, and mainly Chaplin, of course, it shows how they keep getting blown out of the cabin and stuff, and that stuff, you know, all the kind of the genius, you know, slapstick involved here. It's truly remarkable, and it had me in stitches once again. It's hilarious, and just it's so you feel all of the weight of this. You know, it feels like it's actually happening because of the physicality, especially of Chaplin. This is remarkable. This is probably the one, yeah, I could understand in many regards, because this is the one, you know, that really shows the physicality of his slapstick. You could say the most in some regards, and the sets here, you know, they're strong contender for his best, certainly action kind of pieces. Really something else. This whole cabin, you know, what's happening here. This is genius. There's so much variety in this. It's prolonged, it's a sustained greatness. It really is, and just it's constantly hilarious, constantly tense within, you know, how you're anticipating what's going to happen next, and just the way that it's such a struggle for them to even, you know, kind of cook a basic meal up and stuff, and it does show, of course, all these powerful things, you know, like starvation and stuff, but it does, of course, in a sincere way for a comedy. It combines comedy with drama, you know, tragedy and stuff, and of course, just I love how he's infused this really, you know, the emotion behind this. And then, of course, you get to the romance eventually with Georgia, played, of course, by you know, Georgia Hale, I believe it was. Yes, Georgia is a character who basically she's a barmaid in the kind of the town that is you know, once he's been to the mountain and stuff, and they retreat from there, and they go their separate ways. The characters, you know, he goes to this town, and he eventually, you know, kind of gets given this house for a while, and he meets, of course, Georgia. It's a romance, you know, that is not completely, they don't completely fall into each other's arms or anything. She is kind of, you know, kind of putting on a facade and stuff, and using him at first with her friends and you know, and stuff, and her actual, you know, the man that is, you know, pestering her and stuff. She uses Chaplin's character of the tramp for this, but then it does, you know, form actually, you know, as a romance. But yeah, in that sense, it's really complex. Georgia's a great character. You know, she's not one-sided at all. You know, and of course she has her flaws. You have the moments where you're kind of annoyed at her. At least I was. For how she's treating, you know, a protagonist. Because how can you not? If anyone treats, you know, of course, the tramp like, you know, in a bad way, of course, like this in the film, you are, you know, getting behind him. But then again, you know, it manages to be a character, Georgia, who really I really loved as well at times, and just, you know, in the end, of course, here's some spoilers as well. The ending, of course, in the 42 version was changed. A lot of the film has been cut in that version as well, but and narration, but the ending was changed because it was meant to be. It was said to be too happy. Of course, they do. The final shot is them kissing and stuff. But you know, Chaplin apparently, I think he took this out in the 42 version. I've not seen it, of course. I don't want to see it. In favour of a different ending, but I think it's a perfect ending because, you know, it's a romance that's been kind of up and down throughout most of the film. And yes, I think to satisfy, you know, the audience, I think actually it works within the context of the film perfectly. It's an ending that is really brought me to tears, just from how satisfying as it is, of course, and it just works so well. It's perfect ending for me, and it's just really joyous. This film, you know, it's not quite as, you know, emotional as something like The Kid or his best works, which I'll get to, of course. But it is really emotional at times. It's very, very touching stuff here, especially when, of course, they you know, sing Old Lang Syne, you know, singing in the New Year and stuff, you know, which happens in the film, and of course you see Chaplin, you know, looking on in sadness because everyone leaves him. They don't show up to dinner, and that's just a really, really tragic, sad moment. It's so moving. But again, a lot of the film is really, really jolly and upbeat, and just very, very pleasing in every sense. But again, this is the thing. It's a rare film. It really, really feels like an epic. This one it is a comedy, of course, but it's a very, very particular one. It does. It really feels like an adventure epic as well. I love the scope of this film. It's very, very short. Yeah, it's longer than some of his films, but it is really short, around 95 minutes. And yes, it does. Despite that, it really feels like it has a scope to the film, and just the way it starts off, and then he goes to the town, and of course he returns. As we know, if it's in the film, in the final act, to the mountain, to the cabin, in one last search for the gold, for the fortune. Big Jim, of course, plays a vital role in that, and then of course you see him at the end, and it's such a scope, the way it comes together, how I loved, of course, the quote as well, the moment where it says, "Here come the multi-millionaires." That gets me every time. It's just really hilarious moment. I don't know why, it just is the way they come through, all kind of dressed up and stuff. It's just so kind of ironic and stuff. That these blundering idiots, kind of thing, actually ended up with a fortune, and I just loved as well how he's kind of mistaken, for a stowaway, kind of, just before the ending. It's moments like this within the script that are just perfectly executed. And yes, just the friendship as well, as I've said, with Jim. This is such a warm one. It's insane at times early on. I loved the bit where Chaplin, of course, Big Jim basically imagines Chaplin as a chicken. It's just moments like this. It's just how Chaplin kind of makes fantastical sequences. But ones that you just kind of get straight away because they're just so genius, even if they are kind of insane as well. The bit where he's dressed up as a chicken, because of course Big Jim is so starving, and there's such a desperation in the film. At times like this in it with the characters, but it's just always used in wonderful ways for the comedy. That's what he does. He combines all these different powerful themes and messages with this comedy, and it's never kind of poor taste at all. This is all perfect for me personally. I think it's an absolutely flawless film. It's just one of the greatest films ever made, and definitely in my top 200. I would say. It's not in the top 3 Chaplins for me. That's all I'll say for now. But it really is a masterpiece, a flawless one at that, and I just love every moment of this. I think again another genius moment when he's kind of shoveling the snow, in the middle of the film, and he moves the snow from each shop in the town to the next one, so it basically snows them in. They all pay him so he can get more and more money, and then of course at the end, the last one is to the jail. So he looks at the window, and of course no one will give him the money, and it's such brilliant moments like this that are so well kind of built up. All the recurring gags he really masters here, and just the combination of so many different kind of genres, you could say. It's an action film at times, an adventure one. All the cinematography in the film is perfect, and just the way he kind of he uses, he masters all these elements to create such an immersion to the film, a beauty to it, and kind of a harshness when they're in the blizzard, for example, and just all of these, this moving set, you could say. It's one of the genius creations in cinema. It really is something else, and the way it's used, just for kind of to wow you, how physical this is. But the comedy, of course, and I loved how they returned to this set, towards the end of the film, and for one last, kind of search for the gold, and then that bit, when of course they're hanging off the edge, and the house is literally almost falling, and of course they move along the house, and at points the balance is all off, and then the house starts kind of slipping again. It's just genius, and of course you've got Big Jim and Chaplin, the tramp, going at the same time at times, to kind of, so it doesn't look like it's moving, and they can't see what's going on. It's moments like this. There's so many moments that are so memorable, that are so well executed, to a degree that is genius stuff. There's no denying the romance is perfect in this film. George is a great character. I think he has done romance better in his films. We'll get to them. He's done even greater works than this, but there's no denying. This is has everything you want really from a comedy, from a kind of action film, and just yeah, drama, romance. It's very emotional at times. Not, as I say, like his very very best works, but really is something else in its own right. This film is absolutely stunning. One of my favourite silent films, and it's in my top 200 of all time. This film is a masterpiece, no doubt. And yeah, I just think the acting once again from Chaplin, there's a reason why he's in my top five. This is one of the many reasons why he is. It's just, what he brings to the role, the pathos, and just how likable he is in the film. The charm of this, it has so much charm and beauty and just humanity that he brings, just Chaplin alone to his character of the tramp. Yes, he played the tramp in many of his films, but they always seem very different and unique at least, and always never fail really to move me. And of course, overall, this one really really stands out. As his most action heavy, you could say, and the one, of course, you've got so many iconic sequences for good reason. The bread roll dance is genius. It's really really such a wonderful moment, but actually. Yes, many people who've probably never seen the film have seen it on the YouTube and stuff, or referenced in other things. But really, it's within the context of the film. It's not just a hilarious sequence that's just so wonderful visually. It's a sequence that within the context is kind of really sad at times as well, because it is just him imagining things. Believe it or not, this is actually in a dream sequence by Chaplin. And of course, he would be one of the masters of dream sequences. The kid as well and stuff. And there is elements in his films where this happens. City Lights. He always knew how to achieve kind of a fantastical feel. This is no exception, but it is very sad because it's not actually happening, and it's just what he wants to kind of happen. When no one shows up to the party, to the dinner. It's a really really sad moment. But again, it's kind of just the mix of that with the joyous kind of uplifting nature of it, and of course. In itself, the way it's put together, it's just genius stuff here, and of course, it has a place in the top 250 on IMDb. It's in my top 250 because it is in my top 200, and it has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes for good reason. I would also give it that, but I would go a little bit further, and I would give it 100% plus tier 3. Yes, it really is very very close as well to the tier 2s. This is not miles off my top kind of 150 films of all time. It really is something that means a lot to me, and I love from start to finish. This is a film that combines so many different greatness, great moments. It's got so much greatness in it. It has action, some of the best action I've ever seen. The slapstick is all perfect here. It has great characters that feel real. They feel alive. They're all complex. They're all kind of the main ones are the ones that you really really care for. At least I did. I rooted for Big Jim. What a great character. The pairing is so amazing. It's kind of at times like Laurel and Hardy kind of pairing with these two characters, and it's just so good. I think it has a visceral filter as well at times. The atmosphere, and just the way, of course, wonderful ways it's been shot and edited. This is just a beautiful film to look at many occasions. Even the opening kind of straight away, the kind of scene where you see everyone travelling up Diagon, of course. Just a wonderful, piece of cinema, this film. The way it's shot, is beautiful. And just as well for the comedy, everything, the framing, the way, of course, the timing, the comic timing is perfect here. This really, I can see why some people say this is at least one of his very, very best, his top 3, or some say his best. I understand because it really represents, so many different things about Chaplin, that he done so perfectly, and the combination of these, and just this is, it's a hilarious film. Wow, this is one of the most funniest films I've ever seen. And of course, it's very very moving. It's not kind of a traditional Chaplin kind of romance. It's kind of interesting because he didn't do a romance in The Kid. He wasn't in, of course, A Woman of Paris, and of course. Yeah, so this is kind of, since his, in terms of feature films, this is his first one really where he went back to the kind of romance, in this sense. Of course, The Circus again, is kind of like this actually in many ways, and of course, City Lights, is his purest romance in what he's doing there. Modern Times, all these ones, they all have much more romance than this, but certainly much more, as I say, than The Kid and Woman of Paris. This is really a return to all these elements, that Chaplin would do, wonderfully. Is it as good as The Kid? Overall, not quite for me. Of course, I did give that a higher score than this. It's just it means a bit more to me. And it's more emotional, and I think the acting and stuff is just a bit better. But for me, this film is a masterpiece. If you haven't seen it, you have to check it out. If you're skimming to the end, of course, don't watch the entire review until you have. If you have seen the film, I really want to hear the comments. This is just a great, great film. It's magical. It's and it has so much kind of tragic moments, but ones that straight away kind of brought back, of course, the comedy, uplifting moments as well. Joyous film this, and as I say, it feels really, really epic in its scope. The adventure feel that it has, the way as everything progresses, such a strong narrative, including just that cabin, the way that it all kind of progresses, the way it comes back at the end, it's brought in there, and of course the romance, the friendship, and stuff, and all these recurring minor characters. It's just genius stuff. A film that is just truly wonderful. It's spiritual, and it's the Gold Rush. Despite what it says, on this DVD, it's not Gold Rush. It's the Gold Rush, and it's one of Chaplin's masterpieces. No doubt. I think a wonderful film. That is just this is cinema. This is how you do a comedy, an action, a romance, and all written by Chaplin once again, directed, produced, and edited as well. This is genius. This is wonderful, and of course, thanks for watching my review.